You're an artist on record, your ultimate intimate conversation with your favorite artist. And if it's your first time here, do me a favor. Subscribe, hit the bell to be reminded so you don't miss any other episodes. Also, join our all access backstage pass and Patreon. Be a part of the interview, be a part of the show. But in the meantime, put your hands together for Mr. Jack Douglas. Jack's known for working with artists like Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, John Lennon and Yoko, Alice Cooper. He's going to talk about Morris Levy with us. See, Morris Levy owned Roulette Records, and Morris Levy was part of the organized crime. Levy was convicted of extortion in 1990 on charges from the FBI. After losing his appeal 2 months before he was scheduled to go to prison, he passed away. Now, in the mid-70s, Levy filed a much publicized lawsuit against John Lennon for taking a line from the Chuck Berry song, You Can't Catch Me. You see, Levy owned the publishing to that song. Well, John Lennon took a line from that song and put it into the Beatles song, Come Together.
Yeah, come on, flat top. He was moving up with me, then come waving.
Here come old flat top, he come moving up slowly.
Lennon ultimately settled with Levy by agreeing to record 3 songs from Levy's publishing catalog during the sessions for his 1975 LP, Rock and Roll, co-produced by Phil Spector. Now, after complications due to Phil Spector's crazy behavior and after attempts at a second agreement failed, Levy used the demo recordings by John to produce and release a mail order album titled Roots. Now, Levy successfully sued John Lennon and was awarded $6,795. But he was countersued by John Lennon, Capitol Records, EMI, and Apple Records, who won an award of over $145,000. Now, you could see Morris Levy in films like the 1998 film Why Do Fools Fall in Love, also HBO's television series The Sopranos. His character Hesh was based on Morris Levy.
However, there's one constant in the music business. A hit is a hit, and this, my friend, is not a hit.
Why?
Well, here's Jack Douglas talking about Morris and the Rock and Roll John Lennon album. It all starts now. Don't touch that dial.
What I mentioned to you was, you know, a long time ago, the music business was run by gangsters out of New York and a few in LA. And what we call that the good old days. It was more like the Wild West. It was way more fun than it is now, in a sense. But I thought we would talk about that. And
let's do it. I love it.
You know, some of the names you probably know. Morris Levy. You know that name?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. John Lennon had to appease him for the You Can't Catch Me. Yeah.
I can tell you a great. Morris Levy ran Roulette Records. Morris's name was on every record as a composer. I mean, he was the bodyguard, doorman at Birdland, and he actually beat a man to death at Birdland, but got off on self-defense or whatever. He was really a terrible guy. He was well known for, records going out the back door of the warehouse. But anyway, back to this, since we mentioned John and Morris, John had done the Rock and Roll album, and I was out there while he was doing it. And I was producing Alice Cooper at Sunset Sound, and John was over at A&M doing the Rock and Roll album with a really out of control Phil Spector.
Okay, let's just try it, you know.
What's this song again, John? What is it?
It's a Dion song, The Wanderer. Remember it from the 50s. It's wonderful. I love it.
And so anyway, they managed to finish the album. I think Roy Sakal had a lot to do with getting it done finally. And so I was back in New York mixing Alice's album, and John came in to see me and he said, guess what? The album's finished. The rock and roll album is finished. I have a rough of it, and you're not going to believe this. He said, but I'm going up to Morris's farm this weekend, and to play him. These are all songs that he's published. He was on some of them. He was the writer, and I was like, yeah, right. You know, like he gave you $1,000 and you sold the song to him. He got all the publishing. He got everything. You know, he flushed you away if you had anything to do with the song.
That you and a New Jersey mafia figure, Corky Vastola, arranged to have somebody beat up because they owed more than $1 million to the big record company MCA. What about these charges?
They're not true.
But he said, I'm going up to Morris's to play him the record. I have a 7-inch or 5-inch reel with everything on it, a 7.5. So I said to him, John, okay, he was a hero of John's because the Beatles read credits and didn't realize who they were, you know, what this guy was. But I said to John, whatever you do, play him, make sure you play it for him. And, you know, while you're in the room, play him the tapes and be sure to take it with you when you leave.
Right.
Don't, for no reason, you cannot leave this up at Morris's. Why? No. Just trust me. Really, you don't want this thing to, you know, be heard by the wrong people or whatever. So he agreed that he wouldn't do it. I saw him the following week after he had spent the weekend up at Morris's, and I said to him, "So how did Morris like the rock and roll album?" He said, "You know, I kept badgering him to listen to it, but he said he didn't have time, so I left it with him."
Now, Adam VIII presents one of the most incredible artists of our time, John Lennon, singing 15 of the great rock and roll hits, never before available anywhere. Yes, you get 15 great hits in one fabulous record album for just $4.98. Hear John Lennon sing Ain't That a Shame.
The week after that, there were ads on TV. Adam VIII Records.
Adam VIII.
Adam was his son. And it was John Lennon sings hits of the 50s and 60s. And Morris put it out, sold it on television.
Oh, wow.
His argument was because Lennon had taken You Can't Catch, Come Together from You Can't Catch Me, that he owed him. So he thought that, he argued that Lennon left him the tape in repayment of the debt.
Yeah, right. I mean, it took him, I think, 2 or 3 weeks to injunct it, and it had already sold like a few 100,000 copies by the time they got it back. John, you would have thought that John would have learned his lesson with Alan.
Alan Klein. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what did John say when he saw it on TV? Did he call you up and say anything?
He was very sheepish when he was very sheepish. The thing was, he trusted some people that he shouldn't have trusted.
That was Mr. Jack Douglas. And if you want to catch this episode unedited, uncut, join our all access VIP backstage pass in Patreon. Check out our merch store. There's a lot of great stuff there. In the meantime, subscribe, hit the bell to be reminded so you don't miss any other episodes. And as always, kids, always remember, who loves you, baby? We do. Now get out of here, you crazy kids.